Hello and welcome to The Will. My name's Tara Roos.
And I'm Lester Kiewit.
And here we talk about politics, parliament, and we give our hot takes on pop culture.
And today we largely, Tara, we're going to be focusing on the main political moves, and that is the firing of Floyd Shivambu as the MK Party's Secretary General. He now gets sent back to Parliament as an MP for the Umkhonto weSizwe party. In what's happening in Parliament and committees, we're talking about TikTok fame for younger MPs, and I'll wait to hear what's your weekly hot take. But let's start with the politics of the week. Floyd Shivambu, the MK's now former Secretary General, he went to Malawi to have an audience with Prophet Bushiri, who is currently awaiting extradition back to South Africa. Fraud, robbery, all part of the charge sheet. Yeah, the MK party took exception to that. They essentially called Prophet Bushiri legally questionable. I find that very rich when the leader of the MK party has two charges relating to 783 receipts that could be linked to bribes that he allegedly received. A little bit legally questionable there himself. But now Floyd Shivambu goes back to Parliament. Well, he goes back to Parliament as an MP, but for the first time as an MK party MP. They're the official opposition in the National Assembly. They got something like, 58 seats?
58 seats, yeah.
After last year's election. But wouldn't it mean that someone would have to resign from their seat first for Floyd to take up that seat? Or is it smooth sailing for him?
So no, MK currently has 8 vacant seats in the National Assembly. He's been not fired, he's been redeployed, or as the DA put it, re-deFLOYD. And I thought that was so funny.
That's good.
Their new comms director is really good. I don't know who it is, but the new comms director is really good. So Floyd goes back to the National Assembly. Floyd held a really tight chain over the EFF during their tenure in Parliament. And when he left, I mean, there's a stark difference to how the EFF is currently being run versus how it was. As we know, MK has just been, for lack of a better word, a pathetic opposition in Parliament as a whole now. And it would be really interesting to see what role he goes to, because he won't be the chief whip. He also won't be the parliamentary leader unless Klope steps down, which I don't think is very likely. I'd be interested to see which committees he gets deployed to specifically and where he's going to sit in the role he plays in the National Assembly, because Floyd is one of those politicians where his knowledge of Parliament is so impressive. Like, he could quote parliamentary rules off the top of his head, and I've seen him do it before, and it's like amazing the amount of knowledge he's being able to retain. Specifically, I'm really interested to see the interactions he's going to have with his former EFF colleagues. The interactions over social media have been quite intense. Many people have taken many shots at him. And now he's coming from a high-standing party political role into going to be just another commoner at MK.
He's essentially a backbencher.
He is a backbencher.
But before I want to talk about just how MK has fared as the official opposition, Floyd, well, he could be made the new chief whip. Remember, just last week, Jimmy Manye was removed from that role. Colin Makubela is the party's new chief whip. He was, as you said, very, very effective as a chief whip for the EFF on the Rules Committee, Powers and Privileges, Programming Committee, also sat on various finance committees. Yeah. So you're right. He does know his stuff. But would he want to be just an ordinary backbencher?
I don't think he has a choice. Look, the way MK's party constitution is set up is that everything happens at the discretion of the president of the party. There is no elective conference. There is no elective decisions. This is a direct quote, or rather marching order from Jacob Zuma himself. And I would be really interested to see, the news that Floyd got redirected into Parliament happened, and then I kid you not, 30 minutes later, the National Assembly sat and Zuma's daughter gave a speech, and she was looking extra chirpy as she stood out to read her speech about, I think it was P20 was being discussed in the NA that day. I do think this is going to be really interesting because the continuation of the leadership of MK has been a long contested topic, and Floyd had always been seen as almost like someone who was gunning for the party top spot. I do think the fact that now he's been moved back to Parliament at the direct orders of Jacob Zuma is really telling about where MK stands as a party, because they have no continuation plan. And the fact that they're not going to go to an elective conference, I do think speaks to party dynamics and the future and sustainability of the party. But I would be really interested to see what happens with Floyd now, because even at the press conference, he looked so somber. Like he looked at like a child who's just been caught, like stealing candy out of the pantry. So,
look, the MK ran a 2024 election campaign on many things, but also included is the premise of parliamentary supremacy. In other words, they want Parliament to be the institution that has the final word, not the constitutional court, not the executive, but Parliament. So think about that. They want Parliament to be the engine of government and the state, but this is a party that is the official opposition. Let's be honest. The MK party did not expect to perform as well as they did in 2024. They became the third largest party in the National Assembly. The DA and the ANC, they formed together into a coalition we call the GNU, and lo and behold, the MK party is the official opposition in the Republic of South Africa. South Africans deserve the government that they get. They also deserve the opposition that they get. But now we have to ask the question, if this is a party that didn't plan, even imagine that they would fare so well, how are they actually faring as an official opposition, which is critically important the way our government is run?
Extremely poorly. I think when you look at, even MK's recent court case with the EFF to take the fuel levy to court, the way in which they've really tried to maneuver parliamentary rules and procedure, and it hasn't been in their favor. At the end of 2024, a report came out that MK had been doing really poorly as an official opposition. I think it was like 69% of their MPs hadn't been to more than 75% of their committees. And Dr. John Klope, has a really low committee attendance rate. Granted, he is the parliamentary leader, but he's also not the party leader. He does sit on quite a few committees. He sits on 5 committees. But even at that, when you look at the fact that they've changed chief whips, recently, not long after Parliament started, they had 18 MPs resign because infamously Jacob Zuma was making them pay 10,000 rand directly into his bank account just to hold parliamentary membership with MK. So they've had a lot of challenges and obstacles thus far. We've not had a full National Assembly seating where all members of MK have been present. Right now, there's still 8 seats open in MK. When you look at, even when we voted on the fiscal framework for Budget 2.0, the leader of the opposition was not seated. They did not have their entire full party there. So I think it's quite ironic that they call for parliamentary supremacy, but honestly, their performance in Parliament has been quite lackluster.
But we also have to judge the MK party as the official opposition against its predecessor, and that is the Democratic Alliance, who's now in government. The thing about the Democratic Alliance is they are an incredibly effective opposition, and I say that quite deliberately that they are, because they're a party that's in government but also as de facto opposition in government. And here's what the DA would do. They would leverage that official opposition status through the media. They would have effective comms. They would be present in parliamentary committees. They would ask targeted written questions to SOEs, government agencies, ministers and departments. And when they got those answers, they formulate a press statement and they put it out into the public domain. So an incredibly effective opposition in the way Parliament is run. And unfortunately for the MK party, they're not doing any of that.
Absolutely. And even now, the DA, despite being inside the GNU, is still playing an opposition role. The Committee on Finance recently adopted the fiscal framework to move it onto the National Assembly for votes next week. And when giving their support, they stated that they were giving conditional support. How can you, as a political party who is part of the government proposing the budget, give a conditional vote of support? You're in the government proposing the fiscal framework. It makes absolutely no sense. Even their comment when Floyd got removed, who tweets out he's been re-deFLOYD? Like, it's funny. It is really funny, but you are the government. And I think that's not something the DA is fully... I mean, we don't have an official opposition if you really think about it.
So who is there? We have the ACDP, we have Action SA, BOSA. They're sort of rotating in the ether of a GNU, particularly when it comes to this last budget. But BOSA, Build One South Africa, Action SA, the ACDP, the parties outside of the government of national unity, but also outside of the so-called progressive caucus of the EFF, MK, ATM, Cape Coloured Congress. So is it really Action SA and Build One South Africa, and these who have very, very capable MPs? Build One South Africa, Musi Maimane, former leader of the opposition. Also Athol Trollop in Action SA, former leader of the opposition. In the ACDP, Steve Swart, a really, really effective legislator. They're very, very experienced members, but they don't have the numbers.
The argument, I think, if any political party I had to say is acting as the parliamentary opposition, I would say Action SA. They might not have the numbers. I think they only have 6 seats in parliament, but the legislative manner in which they interrogate and investigate a lot of things going on within the GNU is extremely commendable. I mean, look, the Budget 2.0 saga happened when they simply did not understand how a recommendation legislatively works. We can overlook that, but ultimately, I do think Action SA is almost serving that role when you look at the constitutional amendments that they're fighting for, how they really drive policy issues. They have a new private members bill coming out. I do think that they're doing the groundwork. They just do not have the votes. But despite not having the votes, they really do seem to drive many issues. Like, I think if you were to ask the average South African how many seats they think Action SA has inside Parliament, they would guess a lot higher because of the quantity of work that they're doing, despite only having 6 seats.
Look, we also must not forget the EFF, and they have pretty smart MPs. I've been looking at Sihle Lonzi in the Higher Education Portfolio Committee, is really helping drive the agenda and providing that accountability role, which MPs, particularly in the opposition, must do. But at the same time, also, they are feeling deflated. There are fewer numbers. Floyd Shivambu, as a former SG of EFF, goes over, also bled quite a number of members, even MPs that went to the MK party. So while some shining lights there, I think the EFF as a caucus feeling deflated.
Absolutely. I do think the EFF plays a different type of political game than the DA. Whereas the DA were very much sticklers for the rules. They were really robust in their questions, in the debates, and the quality of their MPs when they were in opposition is vastly different to now in the GNU. And I don't think that it's comparable to the EFF. I think that the EFF at large is a few standout MPs. I don't think that it's equal across the board. But even in the type of governments, I mean, Sihle is really good. Like, in Portfolio Committee, the questions that he asks is amazing. But I mean, like...
Okay, so how long does MK last? Is there an appetite to be an official opposition with still 4 years left of this parliamentary term? Would the electoral ambitions be affected anyway about the work that they're actually doing in Parliament? I don't think so.
I do. I think, and this is quite a bold prediction, because I think a lot of people have written the EFF off since Floyd leaving, since their pro-election performance, and when looking at how they're doing in Parliament currently. I think that MK will do well in local government elections. I think that they will gain a lot of momentum. But ultimately what the EFF has and MK doesn't is structures in place. I mean, the argument can be made at large that it is Julius Malema's party and the party holds him at the helm at all regard. But I do think that there is a clear transition of power. If something had to happen to Julius Malema tomorrow, there are people who could take over from the EFF and the EFF would still be standing. I could not say the same for MK. And I do think their internal politics is going to get the better of them. I maintain that I think MK thought that they would do well, and I thought that they would do well going into 2024. I don't think that they're going to be able to hold that in 29.
The difference between the MK and the EFF is that they're both run by autocrats.
Yeah.
The only difference is the EFF actually has a constitution that says this is how we elect our autocrat. The MK party doesn't even have a procedure now to elect a leader.
And Jacob Zuma isn't getting any younger. And I think that there is going to be a complete bloodbath to take over.
Okay, that's the politics out of the way. Let's go to Parliament. Your favorite MP.
Oh God, no. No.
I understand what Liam Jacobs of the DA is doing.
No.
He's leveraging the power of social media. It's not his fault.
No.
It's not Liam Jacobs' fault that people, South Africans, don't read. He is only using that to his advantage. And it's how TikTok fame is taking over legislative duty. So those who don't know, Liam Jacobs is a Democratic Alliance MP who sits on the Sports Sports Culture and Recreation Committee. He is a former DA youth leader, and I kid you not, a professional wrestler. I urge you to go search on YouTube Liam Jacobs wrestling in a square circle, as they call it. But nevertheless, he's managed to harness the power of social media and the under-informed public. So what he does is he turns his camera on, he records himself asking, questions that speak to the accountability of sports entities and cultural entities in South Africa. What he doesn't do is he doesn't broadcast the answers. So what the public sees is Liam Jacobs asking tough questions, holding politicians and entities to account.
You know, I'm trying to think of the nicest possible way that I can say this. Liam Jacobs is nothing more than a wannabe reality TV star who has an interest in South African politics. He's making a complete and utter mockery of Parliament as an institution. He's not the first person to ask difficult questions. He definitely won't be the last. And I just think, I fear I may need to block him on social media because I get personally aggravated every time I see, it's just be a stand-up comedian. You don't need to be in Parliament. He loves the lights, the cameras, the attention, and he also just does not have a grasp on parliamentary procedure, on politics at large and how things work. Board fees. He simply does not understand how board fees work, questioning why people were brought into Parliament, why they were put up at various hotels. He asked, what was the rating of the hotel that you stayed in at last night? Okay, how much does the taxpayer pay for your house at Acacia? Tell us now. Because there are many privileges that MPs also get. Do you think someone needs to come and sit before a parliamentary committee on their dime? People who sit on boards have other jobs, and there are many things wrong with various government institutions, specifically in the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. I'm not saying that Danny Jordan is perfect. If anything, I agree that he should go. But there are legislative mechanisms and powers that he has as a member of Parliament that he's not exercising correctly. The amount of time that he is taking to make his little TikTok videos and screen recordings, the YouTubes, and putting it in CapCut and cutting up the videos and posting it. He could be writing to the Auditor General or the SIU. He could be motioning for a notice or tabling a debate, write a private member's bill. There are things you can do as a member of Parliament than make TikTok videos.
But politics is also about brand building.
But this isn't politics, this is Parliament. This is not an election campaign or an election cycle. Leave that up to the DA's comms team. You are a member of Parliament who sits on a portfolio committee. Why is he out there with his printing out timesheets and looking at different facts and figures and asking such a harsh line of questioning specifically that is not productive to the conversation.
But the thing is, it's working. It's working in that, and look, I share many of your sentiments in the tone and substance of his style of accountability seeking. But he is attracting an audience, a younger audience, who probably doesn't know what a portfolio committee does, never even heard about a portfolio committee on sports, culture and recreation. But he's having them turned on. In fact, we're talking about him right now at the bottom of this video, along with all the hashtags and how search engine optimization works. There'll be a hashtag that says Liam Jacobs. And then, because you brought up this particular conversation, he has beaten you.
Yes and no. You know what, I love this country. People are illiterate. People are completely and utterly illiterate. That also extends to politicians and members of government. People don't read the newspapers, they don't listen to the news. Like, at large, people just lack political common sense. But the idea that you as a member of government play into that in order to gain some of like grandstanding gravitas, Liam Jacobs wouldn't be doing this if no one paid attention to him.
Do you have a personal vendetta?
You know what my issue is? It's not a personal vendetta, but I think that it's this idea that as young people in politics, all you can do is grandstand with no substance and make TikTok videos. Like, there are genuine young people in South African politics who have such a vast knowledge of political systems. Like, there are so many people who could actually quantitatively could tell you the issues that are going on in his department, in his portfolio committee, who are never going to get a platform to be able to actually talk about these issues and drive real change because Mr. TikTok is out here. Like, and I think, I'm so sorry, and this is just, this does sound like I have a personal vendetta against him, but who in their right mind, like, takes their phone out? You're at your job. You're at your job that you get paid for on the taxpayer dime. Take your phone out, you set it up while you're sitting there in committee and you record yourself, and then you watch it back. You're still asking incorrect questions. You have actually no knowledge of what is actually going on. You watch it back, think to yourself, oh, this is a good idea, and then post it to the internet, and then still you post it on all your social media platforms. Stop. Switch phones off in committee. That should be my new rule. I can't.
Tara, tell us what you really think.
No.
When the cameras stop, you'll tell me what you really think. Okay, so we've spoken about politics. We've spoken about Parliament. What's your hot take of the week? And the hot takes don't necessarily have to be in the realm of Parliament or politics. It could just be pop culture or what's happening in your day.
So, I don't know if you saw the news. Tinder is now launching this new filter where you can filter for height. And it started like a massive discussion. Like, you can set like diameters, like how you can like filter for age, you can filter for height. And it started a large debate on social media, like, oh, women are going to use this to be prejudiced towards men. And now men are coming out like in their droves to be saying, actually, there should be a weight filter on Tinder. Like, why can't we search for women by their weight? And my hot take is that all of you need to get off the internet, delete the dating apps, go outside, touch grass. And the thing is, people are only on dating apps because the excuse is, oh, everyone's on a dating app. Like, how am I going to meet people if I'm not on a dating app? Everyone should delete their dating apps, go outside, read a book, touch some grass, go to a coffee shop, have a normal conversation with people, because dating apps are ruining dating in this generation.
I'm very, very fortunate that I got shacked up
before dating apps?
Just before. What is the good one? Swipe left or swipe right?
Right is good, left is bad.
So, look, I know people who are on dating apps. There's more hookup apps now.
Okay, well, so there's levels, like people are like, oh, Tinder's for hooking up, like Hinge is for like proper relationships. There's levels to it. I mean, I don't know if you recall this, like recently when Dean McPherson became a minister, on like the swearing in of the 7th administration, they like leaked his Tinder profile all over social media. But I just think that dating apps, they're just like, there are very few success stories, but I think that it's ruining dating in this generation. And like, why are we swiping left and right? Like, go outside and have a conversation. I also think this idea of like filtering for height or weight, I don't think that those things necessarily matter in the real world.
Should you filter for political persuasion?
I don't think people are honest about their politics online on dating apps either. So like, and there's also the other thing, people are gonna lie. Like, some guy's gonna say he's 6'2", and then you meet him in real life and he's like 5'8".
What's the difference? Do you know what's the difference between 5'8" and 6'2"?
Yes.
What?
Like, A good like 20 centimeters.
My hot take is normal people shouldn't date politicians.
Normal people shouldn't. Oh, okay,
Normal
why?
people shouldn't date politicians because politicians will mess up your life. Politicians only like other politicians.
Okay, politicians should only date other politicians directly, or people in politics should only date other people in politics?
Well, the personal is political. So is
Sure.
politics in civil society? Is it in some advocacy group, or is it even a political journalist?
I mean, you infamously met your wife in the Marx building. So
Yes.
it worked out for you.
It worked out because we were journalists and we worked in the same building.
You know, I used to swear that I would never date a guy in politics. Like, that was my hardline rule. I was like, you know, don't shit where you eat. But I think I'm more amenable to the idea now.
This is a conversation I've had with my wife. And we also have to acknowledge that we have to acknowledge the inherent patriarchy within our systems. And I've asked my wife this, and I've asked, have you ever flirted with a politician to get a scoop, to get a story, and thereby manipulating that toxic male brain and using a sense of femininity?
Look, I wouldn't say, I think yes and no. I think by very nature, like being a young woman in politics, you will get attention regardless of whether or not you want it. And it's ultimately about like playing the cards that you are dealt. Like, I think I've learned very early on that no man is ever really going to take me seriously. Like, I'm being so serious. I get MPs who text me all the time being like, hey, lover. Like, I'm being so, yeah. They'll be like, hey, lover, send over, da-da-da-da. Or like, hey, baby girl. I get that all the time. Walked into, like, the staff enters at Marks the other day, and this, like, MP was like, oh, if it's not my type. Like, I kid you not, I get this all the time. And it's such a common thing among staffers. And you take it, you wipe it off.
That's creepy.
It is creepy, but what am I going to do? And this is the thing.
You can say, no,
Yeah, but then you
I
become...
am an educated whole person who is perfectly qualified to be here on my merit and my esteem.
Sure.
I don't need you saying, hey, lover, my size, for you to validate me.
True, but then they still don't take you seriously. And so I wouldn't say that I flirted my way, but I let things like, and I mean, I don't know, maybe this is very unfeminist of me, but I let things like that slide because then if I'm like, oh, so what's going on? Like, is Floyd moving to Parliament? Like, I want to know. And then that's how you get the inside scoop. So I've never overtly like flirted with someone, but I let creepy comments slide because what else are you gonna do? And it happens to all staffers, like specifically like the young female staff, is you get hit on all the time. Like what must I do?
That's a system that's broken.
It is a system that's broken, but
A lot happens.
happens.
Lot happens at 120 Plain. Well, that's Tara's hot take. I don't know how I feel about that.
When you worked in Parliament, did no one text you be like, hey, lover?
No.
You know what another thing is I have a News 24 subscription, and so these MPs are also really cheap. So like, not everyone has a subscription to all the news services. I'm being so serious. So they're like, hey, lava, and then they'll like send you an article. Be like, oh, can you screenshot this?
You have to gift.
And then
you have to gift send a News 24 article.
News 24 Business Day, and it's also those things like it's like almost trade-offs, you know, to be like, oh, you know, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And then like a week later, I ask him, like, so what happened in the closed meeting? Like, then they'll tell you. That's how I know all the gossip.
I am shocked and chagrined. That's Tara's hot take, okay? If you have any question around Parliament, around politics, of who pays for the catering, where's the best bathroom. I know where the best bathroom is, in the old assembly chamber. If you have any question around what makes Parliament and the precincts tick, drop it in the comments, and Next week, we'll read them and we'll answer your question here on the ball. But Tara, stay safe because they are creepy people.
No, they're not creepy. They're not creepy.
And that's it. We'll chat to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.